with me and I'll show you what I mean. Here we are driving up to the house to measure and estimate for the drywall job. And I'm already thinking about things like accessibility to the site, the condition of the driveway, location of power lines, and anything that might interfere with delivery of the materials we'll need. The house is conventionally framed, about 3,000 square feet of floor plan, and it's been under construction for about 6 weeks at this point. I start with a quick walk through the house to figure out where I'm going to start measuring and find out how ready things are for my crew. I want to see if the electrical wiring is roughed in, if the plumbing and heating are roughed in. Is the framing complete? Is insulation done? Has the building inspector okayed everything so far? This water cutoff and any other large plumbing projections have to be removed before we start, and hanging electrical sockets have to be tucked up out of the way. Here's the master bedroom with its high, steeply pitched ceiling and gable end walls. Each inside corner has to have a good nailing surface for the drywall. This is good. This is good. But here's a place where there's no support in the corner for the wallboard. So I'll have to remind the builder to double check this before I get back. You've got to keep an eye out for the alignment of the studs in each wall. Here's a doorway stud that's bowed out of plane from the rest of the wall. You can check the alignment simply by pressing any straight edge against the wall spanning 4 or 5 studs. This is a typical construction mess, but it all has to go before we can hang drywall. Usually, the electrician will have tucked in these wires, but if he hasn't, I've got to, so they don't interfere with the cutting out of the hole for the electrical box. I usually cut holes for the electrical boxes after the drywall is attached, so I've got to mark their locations now, as well as the position of heat ducts and plumbing cutouts. This mark indicates the exact edge of the heat duct. I also like to mark the location of every stud, wherever we'll be hanging drywall, to make it easier for me to see where to screw into the face of the panels. Now I start measuring the walls and ceilings in each room that gets drywall, so that I can make a list of the lengths and types of panels to order. Here, for example, this wall measures 183.5 inches, which is a few inches over 15 feet. Drywall panels come in even lengths, 8, 10, 12, 14, and 16 feet. So I'll order 2 16-footers for this wall and then cut them to fit. To minimize the total seam length, I'll hang the panels horizontally, right across the window, which I'll cut out later. If I were to hang 8-footers vertically, then I'd have 20 feet of seam to tape, compared to the 11 feet I get with a horizontal layout. Usually the savings is a little less than this, but it's still significant, about 25% of the seam length and the work in taping for going horizontal. I use the wall measurements to tell me what lengths I need for the ceiling. The joist spacing tells me what thickness I'll need in the ceiling panels. And the joist direction also helps me decide what lengths to order, since drywall panels are actually more resistant to sagging along their lengths than across their widths. In the master bedroom, I'm going to measure a ceiling that's about 20 feet long. Drywall panels are not available in lengths over 16 feet, so I've got to figure an arrangement that will minimize the number of butted seams and will keep the butted seams staggered. What's a butted seam, you ask? First of all, here's a tapered edge seam that you'll find where the long edges of uncut panels come together. These edges are designed for easy concealment of the finished tape joint. Now here's a butted seam, which you get when joining the ends of panels or any 2 cut edges. Since these edges have no recess, it's harder to hide the tape seam. This knee wall measures just a little over 54 inches high, so this is an ideal place for 54-inch wide panels. The standard width is 48 inches, but 54s are not hard to get. After I take a few measurements, I enter the size and type of panel on my tally sheet. I use a dot tally system that I learned in forestry school when we were counting trees, but you can use whatever system you like. I'll make a few final tallies and notes, and then I'm ready to place an order to arrive when everything is tidied up and inspected. This house is going to take about 9,500 square feet of drywall.